Welcome everyone, thanks for joining us. This is a 1 hour pre-recorded webinar on regenerative agriculture. We'd really like to thank Ian Moss from FARM Agronomy, Helen Lewis from Picot's Farm and Sarah Fee from BEAR Biologics. In this webinar we take a quick look at regenerative agriculture practices, some examples, what it is and how it might fit into your farm. Thanks for joining us, we'd really like your feedback if you'd like to leave it.
Did anyone have anything they wanted to talk about at all?
Helen, just Brett here. One sort of never-ending question, and Mossy and I have had a debate a little bit about this, but lucerne is, considered a good pasture, good for nitrogen, ideal for sheep, which is my thing, and on red country, and been part of mixed farming for forever. But obviously it leads to a bit of bare ground and just, I suppose something that's trying to get lucerne to fit in, or, just making it fit, it's sort of a little bit counter. I like the concept of growing lucerne, but a bit counterproductive when you go towards ground cover. So I suppose just that regen sort of spin on that, I suppose. And Mossy, you probably know exactly where I'm coming from.
Yeah, did you say lupins or lucerne?
No, lucerne, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, but are you doing lucerne just by itself?
Well, we have been.
So why wouldn't you actually add that with something else, and actually diversify it so that you've actually got some that is actually providing some sort of ground cover as well as the lucerne and interacting with everything. And also, when you graze it, you're not going to run the risk of bloat and all those things.
Yeah, well, it's probably with sheep once again. It suits them down to the ground.
Yeah, true. Okay.
Because you don't have that from an animal management point of view. And that's the animal performance, nitrogen, everything works. It's easy to establish compared to other pastures, relatively cheap.
Yeah.
Where once you get into this mixed species stuff, I understand for the benefits there are, but pure bottom line, lucerne's pretty hard to beat, but you get bare ground. So.
But is that a function of the grazing management though, Brett, rather than the actual plant? Like if you actually strip graze that instead, and so you can come back and have a couple of other a couple of other goes at it rather than actually getting to bare ground. Like
it's probably just combination, I think. Yeah, like we try and graze it fairly effectively, or have in the past. We haven't got any in at the moment, but it just seems to bear the ground.
So have you established it in the past, Brett? Just undersown with
undersown with wheat, So just the real rudimentary mixed farming way of doing it. But just wondering where to go, and at the end of the day, like nothing, it competes a lot of stuff.
One of the issues we come up against is the cost of cover seed. We'd love to be doing lots of different mixes and things, but at some point it becomes prohibitive. Hopefully not too far down the track. We're going to have a whole lot more options, at a lower starting cost until and everyone's different, of course. We're going to get to know what works in scenarios. But I think the concept of undersowing something is still very sound. We want to avoid monocultures where we can. Presumably you'd leave the lucerne for a couple of summers, or is it normally you normally only get one summer out of it? Oh
no, it's 3 or 4 years. It's a longer term thing. I suppose I've never seen a solution. Well, I'm just open to ideas of and I understand diversity too. The benefits of that. And zero till's probably making it worse because you're going to wider rows. I've even thought about going back to full disturbance when establishing it, just to go back to your 6-inch rows. It is for the gear we've got, but I'm just anyway, open to ideas. I just feel lucerne's a huge part of the program I want to do, but it goes a little bit against the grain of the regen, and no one's sort of thrown besides a tropical grass or something, which is probably a longer term program. I haven't really seen anything compatible with it, but I'm open to ideas.
Yeah, Sarah, have you got anything? Because you might know a bit more about that.
I guess I'm curious to know really is the why you're not wanting more species in the mix.
Well, I just haven't had much thrown. Yeah, a lot of it I haven't seen. Cost is one thing, but overcoming that with, obviously you get better performance both in soils and animals. I suppose I'm just looking for ideas of what to add.
Might consider with that you're having a rotation of say 4 years with your lucerne, that there could be an opportunity perhaps to layer your diversity each year. So what you have, you've had the wheat undersown with lucerne, then perhaps consider the next season, well, what can I add into the mix? So it's I talk to others, it's layering the canopy as well, to trying to think not only what you have when looking down over a square metre, but what you have in height. So the medics, lower ground, your lucerne, you might go, desmanthus is even higher. And then, I guess it's looking at different plant structures, and each season perhaps you could infuse something else into the mix, especially if it's a grazing system. A great opportunity. We're more limited when we're trying to do cropping, and got concerns
without
about
animals.
contamination.
Without animals, cropping without animals.
Cropping without animals is a lot more restrictions on what we can imagine that we can do at this point in time. But as you're saying, you're looking for different ideas, but that might be another way of thinking too. Looking around at the tools that you have in your shed currently, but then sticky beaking at the neighbours and whatnot, if they've got something direct drill that you can then just be adding in.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Or even flicking seed out in front of the animals coming in. Feeding it out. I mean, we had great results in the territory actually feeding
animal seed.
Through the animals.
Putting it in the dry mix. I know what you mean.
So it's sort of those layering potential of coming at it with different ideas, different angles, not necessarily the one system, but layering the different opportunities.
Right. No,
it's a good point too, and it's hard with perennials because you obviously need a few years out of them, and we don't want to drift back to monoculture. And it's still an area that I struggle with, to be honest. So in the cropping sort of scene, we've got a fair bit of experience about what works and where we fit covers / forages in. But on the grazing, I'm still struggling to work out the best sort of system or way to go about it. What we're tending to do is to, if your country lends itself to it, is to find the poorer performing perennial pastures and sort of devote those to 3 or 4 years of some annuals or some forages, probably winter and summer, and build some organic matter and fertility, and then go into improved pasture, whether you just let it go back or whether you actually add some diversity of seed. But at least you give yourself, if you're going to spend hundreds of dollars a hectare on seed, which is what you're up for a fairly diverse, improved perennial species, then we want to make sure it's going to work. So that's we've sort of gone to doing that, finding some rundown pasture and working out how to get some forages going in it, winter and or summer. And then trying, depending on what works in your area, trying to get a late summer establishment of summer perennial, not just grass. And as Sarah said, there's desmanthus, and lucerne's probably part of that too. And there's no reason you can't add some annual legumes to that as well.
No, anyway, open to ideas.
I think the grazing is actually a factor. I mean, often we just have to make sure that we're allowing adequate recovery, and also, and I mean, I know it's a species that was active, and so you just have to manage your recovery and give it some time to recover. So I think I would suggest that's sort of making sure. But when you strip crop, make sure you put a back fence on. When we strip graze crops, people forget to put the back fence, and animals will go back over that already grazed area because they want to grab that new growth. So that will actually, if by putting that back fence in, you actually minimise that overgrazing that can happen. And then, you actually lose the value out of that crop because, it just gets eaten out. So,
I agree. One of the more common things I'm hearing now for guys that have 3 or 4 years into their better grazing management and it's seeing the diversity come back. It's actually managing for what you want and
yes.
having those rest periods and actually, they're rattling off names of grasses that their granddad used to have, but they haven't seen for a generation.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that is the other thing. If you actually managing your grazing, you'll actually find that other species will come through. And I don't think disturbing is going to get you any further down the path at all. I think actually, by better grazing management, you'll actually create the right conditions for other things to come through the lucerne, and that'll actually be the ground cover.
There is probably I take on board what you say about disturbance, but sometimes, especially if you've got some dispersive or sloping country, in a perennial grazing system, there's probably nothing wrong with running a wide space riptide just to slow the flow and direct that water where you want to get it in.
Oh yeah, like a yeoman's or something. But I'm thinking about you're not going to turn, you're not going to plough it.
No. Sure.
And actually, while you were saying, I had a thought.
If you have a think about that, I might just jump in and just go to a couple of the questions that Tanya's popped up, if that's all right. One of the ones I thought might be a good starting point was probably good for Mossy and Sarah, if they want to make a comment. It's around the soil test. So where to start with soil tests for measuring organic matter, how and when, and which soil tests, and annually, how often do people need to do them? Sarah, I might jump to you first if that's all right, and then Mossy, if you chime in when it's good to go.
I guess it's age-old, excuse me, answering a question with a question, but the best way to answer that is actually knowing their context and what they want that information for. I know they might be wanting to monitor the improvement of the system, but I guess, part of when we're making a decision of when we're going to soil test and what soil test we're going to do, it's knowing that whole context of what is their question when wanting the soil test. But I guess because there's a difference in what we would suggest to get measured when we Mossy, if they're really wanting to think that they're going into a carbon trading system, versus whether they're wanting to monitor their system and see their improvements. Are they going forward with their management choices, or are they going backwards? So I guess, that's part of the fuller picture of what we're thinking about with soil tests. And we've now got the opportunity to also look at soil health check as well with a Haney test. So I guess you're wanting to look at the full nutrient availability and what nutrients are in early available pools as well as long term, which we would get with an EAL Ag test that Mossy and I both get people to do. And then we've also now got the opportunity of the Haney health check, more biological, what is the functionality and how well is the biological engine working of our system. You can have that test. And I also get soil food web tests for people. So where we actually narrow down and actually get more specific on who's who in, bacteria, fungi, level of endophytes and that sort of stuff. So if they're wanting, I guess, initial results on soil carbon, they can get a normal soil test gives us an organic matter level, which is then converted, understanding what level of carbon they've got in the soil. And it's a long convoluted way of answering, but it's a different analysis if they're actually wanting to get an assessment from actual carbon for trading. So
Yeah.
I think that's a great answer. I think, it's all about knowing what your plan is. You can't just get a soil test if you don't know what it is you're actually wanting to use that for. So I think that's great advice.
Oh, it is. Yeah, it all depends on the purpose of it. And there's so, I know in my early days, one of the disadvantages of soil tests is you tend to just look at that bit of paper and focus on that rather than standing back and taking a bit more of a holistic view of the whole of what you're trying to achieve.
And having it as data, hey, Mossy, of all that you see. So it's another data point, really, information, of what you're visually seeing as well, so that you start calibrating yourself for what might be happening from a soil test point of view or nutrient level point of view. But yeah, the level of ground cover, the different diversity of plant species that are growing in the system, and all those things, we need to pull together, really. We're planning soil health moving forward.
Absolutely, that's a really good point. That it's just another tool. When early on the piece, maybe it was at uni, I can't remember, too long ago. But as an agronomist, we should separate out our observations from our interpretations, from our recommendations. They're three very different things. And Sarah, you're right. I reckon we've got to get better at observing all the things that are there and doing them on a regular basis or whatever makes sense. Then we can get into what do these actually mean? And then that, again, is separate again to, okay, what can we do about it? Where are the big levers that we can pull that will make a lot of difference? Or where's the low-hanging fruit that might be a relatively easy or faster thing to do? And back to the carbon, most of the labs will give you a soil organic matter or soil carbon measurement. We probably need to get a bit smarter about the forms or the fractions of carbon, which you can get, and I think they're getting a bit cheaper as well, because there's no shortage of carbon turnover in our farming systems. It's the form that we're keeping it. We're putting it back in the soil that only lasts for weeks and months, because it's mainly bacterial mineralisation. But if we can sort of get some more of the fungal decomposition and putting it back in the soil that way, we're talking about months and years that will be staying there. I think that's I don't know, Sarah, what do you think? But we're starting to come to an understanding that we've got to change the way we store carbon in the soils.
Yeah, absolutely. And the observation of I guess the system, and another reason why having canopy and ground cover is so important in that carbon cycle, because we can have tests like Salvita test, and that's sort of a measurement of carbon respiration, but we do need to be careful utilizing that test, because you might see that you've got a great, what you think is a great result, but if you don't have canopy above the soil to capture that carbon back in, it's actually a loss from the system that is a measurement of. So it's sort of knowing what that data might be telling you. Again, you've got to relate it back to context, because if we don't have living plants above the soil that has that type of respiration, then it can be a loss. We're not keeping it in the system. So another vote for, ground cover.
Yes. And coming back to a more general aspect of soil testing, if you're taking it, if the primary reason for you taking it is more about understanding what the fertility issues are and what you can do to improve them, then you need to think about, the depths that you do, what the industry standards are, or where there's desired ranges developed for, understanding the difference between the different pools of nutrients, total amount of nutrient in the soil as opposed to plant available, and as Sarah was saying, with this Haney test is sort of bringing some more information in again about what's going to become available. So it depends whether you're doing an investigative thing or you're just measuring carbon for trading or something like that.
And again, back to it's that question you're asking when you're in the paddock, what's that burning thing that you're looking for a solution? Is it general knowledge about where your soil health is at, or you've got a patch that just does not perform compared to the rest of the paddock? And if that's the case, then ideally you're going to do 2 tests, because you need to know the difference. So again, it's that context and posing what is that question that you're trying to answer for yourself.
Just jump in. I just saw a comment Tanya wrote about saying the original question for the landholder that's not on was about wanting to monitor improvement of the system. So I think we talked about that a bit, but Tanya, jump on if you think there's anything more specific that they were looking to get an answer from around that question.
Well, the problem is maybe soil carbon changes slowly, and it will vary, within the season and geographically as well. So you can't. It's very difficult to measure changes in organic matter or over a short time period. So I think there's an aspect of that people maybe expect that they can take a test, do something, and then in 6 months see if they can measure a difference. I think it's it's not quite that easy.
And also, yeah, Ian, I'll take that point, because I know that when we've had soil tests before the drought at 6% soil carbon, and then after the drought it's down to 4%. Yeah, and because that would be a natural process, really.
Yeah,
clearly, things are being used and drawing on it, and it's drying out, and those are the things that are happening. So I think that's it's a living process, and it is also it's just being processed through in the soil with microbes and all the activity and all the critters. So I think it's not a constant. It's not a continual increase, but maybe it might take us sooner to get back up there. Maybe that's how it works. So just as a thought, but I think also just that context. But what are you trying to achieve on your place? So what do you want it to look like? What are you trying to get to? And I think that's, if we have that in mind, then a soil test is great, because it gives us where we're at. And then we can start working on, okay, well, these are the things we want to improve. Let's now start making some changes to management and then start heading in that direction.
Yep. And I love that.
It will depend on enterprise, in terms of how quickly the shift might occur as well. A grazing timeline would be different than, say, horticulture or cropping, perhaps, if the fine tuning, I guess the need for fine tuning has a variation in urgency, I guess. But if it is in a grazing situation, it's having similar time when you're actually doing the analysis, and importantly, stick with the same laboratory as well, so that you are comparing, the same with the same. It's like when we do our biological monitoring, I throw the darts. I read at least, if I'm wrong, at least I'm consistently wrong. We've been doing it for 10 years. So it's just me reading what I've seen, so it's my own kind of gauge. But, it's as a result, the results are valid because they're consistently taken by the same person every year. So and it's an opportunity to get in and hands-on, get involved in the soil, really observe it, so that you're seeing the changes for yourself. Do some water infiltration. I've got more and more clients now so you're empowering them to do those sorts of things and play with the soil more. That they're seeing those observations. It's just not numbers that they create from soil test. It's their actual physical changes that they're encountering by being in the paddock more. And
checking that how the function of the soil surface is happening. Because your soil test is telling you what's happening underneath, but then at least if you're monitoring the soil surface, you can actually tell whether or not you're enhancing or creating the right conditions for that soil biology to grow.
That's right. And don't go to the paddock without the shovel.
That's
Have a look at what's above and below. I know sometimes we feel that all the little plants there are just so important. We don't want to dig any of them up. But if we don't know how they're coping, underneath, and what sort of root systems we are generating, and are they going straight down, or we've got some going sideways, all those sorts of things.
And that's what we've got to do in our cover crop. We've got to dig some holes and see what's going on.
That's right.
I haven't had a look yet. Yeah, that's good.
But you're right. The infiltration test is it's fairly easy to do. My best two tools are, apart from the shovel, my penetrometer and doing infiltration. And as you said, Sarah, just starting discussions in the paddock, getting your hands dirty, thinking about it. They're easy to do. Anyone can do it.
I'll just jump in and just touch base. Does anyone, we've had a fair bit of information there, some great information, but does anyone want to have any comments or questions around some of those discussions? Feel free to unmute yourselves and jump in and ask. No? All right, we'll keep going along. I'm just conscious of time, so I'm just going to keep pushing on, but just interrupt at any time. So I'll just stick back up to one of the top questions around some of the species that were used in your trial, Helen. So this probably for you and Sarah. Where to source some of the less common seeds. And then there was a good one I was thinking, interested in talking more about the canary seed and cereal rye. So I'm not sure whether that's around what those crops do or where you source them from.
Yes, so Sarah, you might be best to talk to that.
Okay, it's in finding our networks, isn't it, Mossy, really, of tracking down this seed. And I guess importantly, the challenge of finding uncoated seed as well.
Yes.
That don't have, fungicides and things on them. So I guess, you spend a bit of time on the phone and developing networks of where to find the seed. So, and I guess more of the main seed distribution guys are getting pretty used to having our phone calls and asking for these sorts of things. So it is starting to be more possible to get uncoated seed. Sometimes it's a bit more of that forward planning. And I guess the value in the network, and that's the important part of having our community regenerative ag and conversations between us all is building that network. Queensland Ag Seeds and several others now, Heritage Seeds, like they're starting to have this conversation and they're starting to get more used to being asked for uncoated seed. So, like anything, the more that we shop and ask for these things, the more available they'll become. Yeah. I guess, yeah.
What about the canary seed? What was that question about that? Cereal rye and canary seed, what was the question?
Well, I'm not sure why we've got the canary seed question because we actually haven't got that in the mix.
But maybe they're interested in it. Maybe
So I guess that's an old variety, an old species that we used to have around a lot more, but I think I am seeing the odd paddock evolving. So yeah, Mossy, have you?
Haven't seen it for a few years, but I guess it's just another cereal to have in that toolbox. There'd be no reason why it couldn't or shouldn't be used. It's fairly similar to wheat or barley for that matter.
The message has popped up about, I think you just covered it, but the role it plays in cover cropping. So I guess any comment on, what its role is in the layering or any of the other reasons that you put those species in?
I guess it's another species to have for diversity in the cereal realm, basically. And I guess I know for me, I actually am looking often for the older varieties to add into mixes. I'm pretty happy if they don't, we can source them, they don't have plant breeder rights anymore and those sorts of things. Part of my philosophy is that I actually think with the older varieties, they've got a greater chance of still having the ability to communicate with microorganisms. They, have been more likely to have been grown in systems of less of hydroponic non-regenerative feel, if that makes sense. Because I think, a key part of what we're trying to achieve is reconnecting the plant and soil communication. So I don't know, that's part of my philosophy when I'm developing seed mixes.
What else have we got, Vanessa?
I just see some comments there. Where was I looking? Sorry, just lost my. This is a good question, I think, about point do you terminate the cover crop to conserve moisture for the following grain fodder crop, and how to terminate, and discussing options around alternative cropping types?
Grazing it. Just graze it. I don't think you terminate it, you graze it. Graze the hell out of it and then plant into it.
Well, it depends on the purpose.
Yeah, exactly. That's true.
Yeah, that's right. I think the end of that question was about for grain or forage cropping scenario, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
When in a summer dominant rainfall climate, then, and if your soils are capable of storing moisture, then we have to use our summer months to store moisture. So the principle is to have enough cover there in spring. So, and before Christmas, say you've terminated that. And how you terminate is another discussion altogether, but we've terminated it before, say, Christmas, so we've still got all of January, February, March to accumulate moisture. We know we'll probably, a decent cover crop's going to use probably 75, 80 millimetres of plant available water, but we know most summers we get 300 or 400 mils of rainfall. The best farmers have been keeping 25% of that, but with good cover, we're going to keep significantly more, so we can end summer with more stored soil moisture. So I think that's the principle of how to do it. And I think sometimes we get a little bit caught up in growing covers. Timing is actually really, really critical as well. So making sure it's terminated before Christmas so that we can, in most seasons, we can accumulate that late summer rainfall.
Mossy, the second part of that was just how you touched on saying how to terminate a different story. Have you got a bit of advice on, or some techniques that people can use to terminate apart from grazing?
There's been a lot of talk about crimpers and rollers. I have seen them work on monocultures of cereal rye, sometimes even the forage sorghums if you get them at the right stage, but rarely will they actually terminate the crop as such. And this is one of the difficulties of, if you flat out wanting to avoid herbicides, then it is really difficult. You're back to your grazing and your rolling and crimping. There's not a whole lot of options that I'm aware of.
Yeah, and I guess the timing also, if you're maximising soil health perspective from a moisture and as well as the plants actually, pumping things down into the soil and not switching to reproductive, it's the key, and physiologically is to come in prior to the plants switching to set seed as well. And that also, the physiological age can affect the how well the roller crimping is working as well. But yeah, that is part of our key challenge, especially in cropping systems, is that role, how to terminate. If they've got grazing animals in their mix, it's great because we've got that option, and you're looking after two enterprises at once.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess, there's variations in how we maybe, if there's a herbicide program, softening the herbicides impact on soil health.
And is there that notion though, that isn't there that thing about a compost tea of a plant doesn't like its composted self? So you can actually inhibit the growth of a plant if you compost its, if whatever the grass is, if you made compost tea from it, it doesn't like its composted self. So that actually may become a natural way of inhibiting growth, because I've heard that done with lantana and a few things like that. You make a compost tea of lantana and it hates its composted self. Like it really curbs its growth. I don't know.
Yeah, and I guess that might work in a monoculture sense, because otherwise you'd have to have a multi-species
compost brew. Yeah.
We've got the desiccant, and I guess putting, Mossy had that conversation go out, and we've had it at a few workshops as well, looking for people that are willing to put their hands up and trial it, where it's a nutritional spray that we're desiccating the plant. So we're or nutritionally pushing it towards maturity, I guess, and causing desiccation. So, and that's something Professor Huber and Nicole Masters have got formula, I suppose, that is being used. Initially, more what Don saw it being used in was actually sugarcane, but it really should work for any plant, because it's actually, so it's not about a kill, it's actually pushing towards end of life and desiccate. So it's more a maturity push type thing. So I guess we're going to have to think of the different ways that we can achieve this, especially in cropping. Because it's not if we need, it's when we're going to really have to step up and do these changes in the production system, isn't it?
Pigs are good.
And this is the challenge. I want to say to so many of the hard fast croppers there, time to put your fences back up, guys, and bring
exactly, absolutely.
But the reality is that there's going to be certain ones out there that's just not going to fit. And so we've got to look for other solutions. I mean, there's if people are into biodynamics, there's a preparation there that can be, if you spray later in the day, a preparation that has another benefit, a totally different benefit, but a timing of when you spray is meant to desiccate as well. So, I'm keen to give that a try. So. And I guess then it's getting the crop in and getting the competition of that crop to help keep things in check. And hopefully we'll see more and more that we're not just doing a monoculture crop into that. We're doing, a couple of species. So there's 2 or 3 different species, then again, having more competition potential for what we've just had in the system. I think, our future rotations could potentially look very different.
Awesome, that's great. I'm just conscious of time, so
Yeah,
I don't want to cut it off, but I just wanted to jump in and just do one question, then we'll go, Helen, to where the trial's up to.
Yeah, sure. And then Ian's got some stuff. So.
So Anne, it was just a question you had, and I think it's relevant probably to a lot of us, is just keen to delve into how to engage farmers to transition from industrial to regenerative practices. So I'll open that up to any of you.
Well, you can't lead a horse to water. More and more often, the phone calls I'm getting now are, I don't know what I need to do. All I know is I need to change. I can't keep doing what I'm doing. So I think there's a recognition of moving away from pain just as much as there is towards moving towards what people want. I don't know. It's also logical to me that regenerative, it's almost, I feel bad sometimes. I feel greedy. I want to have my farm in a better condition because I want to make more money from it. I want to leave it to my kids in better condition. Like, who doesn't want to do that? I don't understand why people don't want to be regenerative.
Yeah, but I think everyone's just in a different, in a different place, and I think it is a journey. And even on the regenerative ag spectrum, you've got you've got a spectrum. People are at a different stage of that journey. So if you take the whole of agriculture journey, then there's people still back at industrial ag and conventional stuff, and then there's people right up there who are back and living in the trees. So you've got a whole host of range, and it's basic. It has to be there's a trigger for the change to occur in someone's mind. It's either a bad experience, or an influence, or just some event that causes them to actually make that phone call. Because that phone call has probably taken them 5 years to make, potentially. And so people just operate differently, I think, of what they get exposed to.
That's
and
right.
if they're not exposed to it, if there's if all the people they hang out with are doing what they've always done, then why do they even think they need to change? So
do people often start with like a small step, doing one small thing? Like, how does the transition normally happen that you guys have noticed?
could jump in. That almost it depends on the driver. What was the driver for change? And even the different personality of the individuals and their level of risk. Yeah.
And it's also very different if it's a chosen change or an unchosen change, because the actual steps of unchosen change is very different from chosen change. And so if we have an unchosen change, it's like forced to do something, that they otherwise wouldn't have thought of doing because of a health situation or a financial situation, or they just can't afford to do that the way they used to do it. It's very different to someone who's just chosen something. So there's a point where if it's unchosen change, we blame and we sort of go down a negative path. We then finally accept it and actually start moving forward. But then even when we've chosen the change, we sometimes then get stuck and say, we have really excited and we get busy, and then we go into self-doubt. And so that point there is actually where people can actually go, yeah, they've chosen to change, but then they can actually reverse and go backwards, because if they don't receive the support they need when they need it, and they feel like a lone ranger and all their neighbours are saying they're a bit odd, then they scuttle back and do what they've always done. So there's points where if for people who are supporting people in that change process, it's like any change. There's key points of support that are required. But I take your point, Vanessa. I think what we probably could do better is actually do those these small trial plots and just actually give people a chance to have a go on 5 acres or whatever, and just so people can actually see whether or not it works or get interested in it, and then ask some more questions and then evolve their knowledge from there. So there is an opportunity, I think, to do far more small trials and plots for people, so that they can, they actually, there's a if we had a vast range of trials on different things that people could, see, we capture on video or whatever. I think it's a great opportunity to plant seeds. Mind the pun.
It's a good point you make. I agree with all of that. It depends what your trigger is. Some people are forced to change from bushfires or health or financial or whatever. But some of the main triggers that I see when you start to talk to farmers about how many harvests they've got left, regardless of what the number is, the fact that we're actually starting to talk about, this bit of land that you farm might only have 50 harvests left before you're totally unprofitable and unproductive.
Oh, wow.
Now people start to go, and the whole rainfall capture thing. You tell people that most summers, most farmers lose 250 millimetres of rainfall to runoff and evaporation.
Yeah.
It's those realisations. The other point I wanted to make is I think sometimes people resist. It's the green, it's the weird stuff that they don't want to be associated with, or got to be careful about that terminology. Not that we're embarrassed or about anything we do, but if we want to bring more people along with us, then I guess we've got to make it easier for them to do. And maybe just one more point, there's no shortage of information. In fact, there's probably information overload. People don't know where to start. And often the people I come across have gone down on a tangent, on a gully, something that's probably relevant, but it's only part of the solution, and they're kind of looking for a silver bullet. It's the more holistic stuff, Helen, you talk about.
Yeah, and I guess it's this notion of that. I mean, we're very good at linear, and people love how-tos. I mean, and if you're transitioning, and conventional ag is all about the how-to, it's all about the silver bullet. If I do this, I get that. Great, thanks, I'll carry on. But regenerative is a bit blurrier. There's a lot of grey, and you get a mixed result, and you don't get the same result every year, and it's all a bit different, and you just keep adjusting and nimble. And still just pivot and change plan B. It's like, just tweaks and adjustments all the time. But it means you're actually engaged and you're observing and you're checking, and it makes farming interesting again. But it's not a science, it's not an exact science. And so it's a very different headspace to be operating in than what was. And I think that's, there's no silver bullet. There's a mixture of options, mixture of solutions. And also, ultimately, it's what and every farm is going to be different because every person in that farm is different. Like all the, we've all got different values and we've got different pictures of what we want our futures to look like. So my decision to do one thing on my place, someone would never dream of making that decision because that doesn't suit them, So it's very, no farm is the same because the people are different. And I think we tend to get caught up in, and in conventional, I sort of try and separate the person from the solution. Whereas in regenerative ag, it's actually absolutely merged because, the people are part of the solution.
That's right. For me, it's very much about empowering them back in their decision making.
Yeah.
And I find those that are on the regenerative path are very apt, thirsty for knowledge. So I guess, it's, as Helen was saying earlier, and why, I was doing events and whatnot, it's giving them the opportunity not only to get information, but to knock around with others that are also in the same phase of gathering information and learning from each other. And that's not only chatting about it, but going out into the paddock and seeing what has worked, but just as importantly, what didn't work in someone's eyes. Or, even the little setup ideas of different machines and whatnot. It's just, the sharing journey and not looking for a recipe written down on a piece of paper where conventional ag has gone. But knowing that flexibility, Helen was saying, is okay and is actually part of it. So.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's regenerating communication even on the human level, that's what we're doing. We're reconnecting back to community.
Yeah, no, great guys. We're getting pretty close to our hour. Helen, do you want to just give a quick update on, I can see a photo up there of the crop
sure.
today.
So we've had fairly good germination. I haven't done some digging to check the roots, but if you've seen the video, you saw the roots within about a week. Ian came out after we'd planted, and the roots were 3 times as big as the shoot, which is pretty amazing. So there was half the paddock we added the active fert, isn't it, Sarah? Active fert?
So active fert product, active start. So active start and Nutrisoil.
Yeah, okay, active start and Nutrisoil. So so half of it was added to that and then half wasn't. So the first part wasn't, and it's certainly a lot less. And I found in this Lipia, I was just saying earlier before we all started, there's some growth there, but it's actually very open. And I'm thinking that, and I've seen nibbles on some of the other shoots that from obviously ruse, because we had no stock in this paddock. And I'm just thinking whether or not these have actually grown up and the ruse have actually gone to them because it's easier to eat because there's no long grass around, so they feel safe and they just nibble it away. Or the Lipia's inhibiting the growth. But then we've actually got some really good shots of growth in Lipia up here somewhere, maybe a bit further on. No, I'll go back. There's that's not so good, but there, there's Lipia and there's some pretty good shoots. So there's no rhyme or reason, but it just seems to be just different. In that space where there was not a lot of longer grass around, so there was a bit longer grass there and things like that. So it was just a thought I had that maybe that was what was happening there, but. It certainly hasn't, I think definitely there has been a difference with the active start, definitely coating of the seed. So we put that into the cement mixer and we just gave it it was just damp. So it could still go through the seeder, but it was just slightly damp, and it has certainly probably done better than the stuff that wasn't coated. So that's certainly one of the differences. But it will be interesting to see. It has had about 3 inches on it since we planted it in April. So we planted it 3rd of April. So it was probably a bit early. I don't know. Some came a bit earlier. I mean, so it varies between sort of like, I don't know, from 5 centimeters to 20 to 30 centimeters. There's some taller, you know, I think one of the oats or, yeah, one of the other cereal crops is coming up. You know, there's been quite a bit of a high, but it's very variable. It's a, you know, it's interesting to think, but obviously there's a lot of diversity there and a lot of different summer grasses, and we didn't ever graze it. So it is what grew from, you know, 300 mils of rain in February. So that's anyway, that's good. Anyway, anyone got any questions, please feel free to answer them. I'll stop staring and let Ian do his thing.
We had a few frosts there.
Yeah, we have had frosts. So we've had about 3 frosts, I'd suggest. 3 or 4 frosts. Yeah.
Does anyone have any questions around that they want to ask Helen around the trial that hasn't been answered? No? Well, I'm just conscious we're at our hour, so happy to wrap it up here, but if people want to ask any more questions, pop them in the comments. We can go probably for another 5 if Helen and Ian are happy, if you've got more questions.
Yeah. Ian, did you want to share something?
Well, I don't know whether we need to do any of the presentation stuff. I'm going to put Anne on the spot, because she has got some great experience. Back to the question about the industrial farmers sort of moving to regenerative, is what do you see as the triggers, and so as well as the triggers, what do you see, where do they start, or where do they start successfully, I suppose? Can I put you on the spot and ask you that?
Yep, you can. Well, you know, I think about this quite a lot, and what I've discovered, I've started doing the Regenerative Agriculture uni course at Southern Cross Uni this year, and that's certainly opened up a lot of questions, because there's quite a diverse range of people doing that course. And one of the peer review documents that we looked at for one of our study was based on a research that was done for transitioning, and what it was that triggered people into change. And majority of the people that they interviewed had done a HM or an RCS course. And that leads us to think that those people, once they get to that point that they identify they need to go down that track to further their education, they then are in a nurtured, secure, safe environment with support around them, with other like-minded people. So as Helen alluded to before, you know, you looked at as though you've got 2 heads sometimes if you're doing things across the fence that, you know, is not what they call traditional or what everyone else in the region's doing. So that in itself highlights that education is a really critical point to identifying or getting people to start to think about what it is you want. What is your why in this world? Yeah. What is it? And I don't think, a lot of people don't even think about that. They're thinking about all sorts of other things in terms of, you know, their existence, you know, where they inherited the farm, you know, whatever their context actually is. So from that point, we've done a lot of work on complexity thinking and linear thinking. And Helen mentioned linear approaches before. And I think there's a lot more in that to be explored yet, to work out, I guess there's a lot of other emotional and connective issues that we could probably press the buttons on to actually get those people across the line. So I think it's a work in progress, and I think it's just being collective in our thoughts. But education certainly is one of the key drivers if you can get them into that. And that's something that we're focused on as regional agricultural facilitators in our region. Is we're just about to launch Farming for Change program, which is a funded project, and that basically is around education and hands-on measuring and monitoring in the paddock. So it's combining the two, but really focusing on measuring and monitoring the basic things, water infiltration, you know. And I've just written a note, which is going into our next newsletter, which is 10 points, 10 key things that you should have at your ready. And One of them's your shovel, your phone, your water infiltration, temperature gauge, just that quick hit list of things that people, that you don't need a degree to use them. You've just got to use them and observe what's happening and make some comparisons to see what your practices are actually doing. And then perhaps jump over the fence as well. So it's just a matter of, but I think what's happened, Mossy and Sarah, you know this as well as I do, in terms of where we're at, particularly in the region that we're in, is that farmers have removed themselves from the paddock. They don't observe, they rely on other people to do it for them, that make the decisions for them. So until we can get farmers to actually take back control of how they manage their properties, in a lot of cases, particularly for the big broadacre agriculture, I don't think we're going to see a change. Or we have to influence the consultants that are there for, it's having such an influence on the farmers themselves.
Yeah, and I think one of the things is, people have stopped asking the question, what am I doing and why am I doing it? And then also though, because regenerative ag is really trying to work with nature, the inputs don't have to be expensive. They don't have to be. So then it's not in the consultant's interest to go down that path because they don't make as much money. And of course, because they're solving the root cause of the problem, then they don't have to exist in it. That they, of course, they will always have to. But it's that whole thing of, I'm going to be scarce, rather than seeing it as an abundance. So there's a whole heap of different mindsets that are actually established, which probably are the limiting factor in a way sometimes. So I think, it's a hard one, but but yes, I agree, like the education, just exposure, and then the support is key as well. But the decision making and getting them back in their driver's seat, I don't think they've actually understood how valuable being the decision maker is as well. And I think that's they've forgotten how empowering that is. And if we can reinstigate that understanding of, I can actually drive my farm myself, I can actually do that, would be, it'll just change their life. Be good.
Yeah, absolutely. It's connectivity and it's understanding. And if, I guess we've all just got to keep doing what we're doing and keep mustering others up to join the tribe, I guess, is the best we can do, because none of the other carrots are working. In terms of, you'd think though that after the drought and the importance of ground cover would ring a few bells, but it's not when you drive around.
I know, but I don't think there's real acknowledgement about that. They think they just think it's because it's dry. It just happened.
No.
And where are you based? Sorry, Anne, where are you?
I'm at Moray.
Oh, okay, yeah, great.
One of the first things that we did, this is back in 2000, to get us into the system, was we just simply closed the gate on a paddock. Yeah. We went, right, it needs ground cover. And we just didn't touch it. As hard as that was, that really got us to a point of actually understanding the recovery phase and the importance of just letting nature heal itself, work itself out. I mean, we have had, Mossy's done some tests for us, but for us, that was a benchmark. That really wasn't, I'm not going to go and spend any money probably only on seed treatments when we plant. That's about it to help the plants along. But we've pastured crop previously in those paddocks without any seed dressings at all. Yeah. And any nutrient. And the plants, I genuinely believe that the plants will actually generate that themselves if we give them the ability to be able to get their roots down.
Yeah.
So in our harder set country, within that's slightly sodic, it's you get plant roots in there, and it heals itself. But the last 18 months basically put us back to square one again with the wind and the drought. But we've actually gone through and we've actually just put a tine in and ripped some of those areas on the contour. So we're desperately waiting for some rain to try and test that system now. See, we've only had 200 mil for the year, so we're very, very dry where we are. We haven't planted anything. Extremely dry. So that's the test for us. If we can actually slow the flow even on our flat country, to actually assist those little hard red top areas, then that combined with the pasture cropping is certainly going to give us, you know, the soil health returns that we need plus the production.
Yeah, that's good.
The cows then to eat it, Mossy.
That's it.
Yeah.
I think we're going out of time, have we?
Yeah, no, we'll probably have to wrap up just because we need to go to a different, make this Zoom platform available. But thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for all the input, all the great questions. Yeah, we can make this available if anyone missed out. If everyone, I'll talk to the speakers and make sure they're happy to share it.
Yeah.
We can share it with people if they've missed out on watching this. And yeah, keep in touch. If there's anything more you want to see or discuss or talk to these guys, I'll send around the details of email addresses if everyone's happy, and we can go from there.
Great.
Excellent.
Thanks
Good job.
thanks so much. That's great.
Okay.
Really
Thank you.
good.
Everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks. See you later. Bye.
Bye. If we stay, I was going to say, if you guys stay on.